And one of the latest venture capital firms, New Fair Partners, who invests in early-stage food and beverage businesses, announced that it has raised $20 million to date in its inaugural fund round. For more, we welcome in Elly Truesdell, New Fair Partners founder and managing partner, as well as Yahoo Finance's Brooke DePalma. Great to have you here in studio with us, and early Happy New Year to you as well, Elly. And we're looking at some of the brands that you've invested in.
Already had one.
As well, already broke into one.
I love that. It's almost done. Amazing.
Made for the modern eater. I'm that guy.
It's a good space to be able to evaluate, because not only can you really check out the taste of some of the different investments, but you can also really get a profile of how they may fare even next year in a recession. What do you really use as your criteria to evaluate companies in this environment?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. It's great. I love that you guys have already dived right in. I think we look at a lot of things, and one thing that we are actually pretty optimistic about is that when we at New Fair are looking at a new brand, we want to see true long-term value proposition. We talk a lot about the modern eater and a consumer who's expecting or demanding a lot more from their food. So much of our thesis and what we've built our fund on is based on my experience at Whole Foods after 10 years of spotting young brands, emerging up and coming startups, and recognizing that, the macro shift towards health and wellness is not going anywhere. So if a brand, what we're seeing is a brand really needs to be offering some sort of indispensable attribute to their consumer. Otherwise, they are going to be in a tough position during a recession.
And one thing that you invest heavily in, you say that you're driving the next generation of food. Now, including midday squares, plant-based protein was really a key term that we heard a lot of in 2021. In 2022, we saw some companies scale back, and Beyond Meat perhaps getting poor attention for just not performing as well as previous years. Where do you see plant-based protein moving in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think plant-based protein is a really interesting part of the market right now. We've seen a lot of fall off. Beyond Meat is getting a lot of hammering right now. But what's interesting is what we've always mentioned is that consumer trust is sort of number one when it comes to food, as is consumer brand. And a lot of these tech companies that went after growth at any cost, they maybe lost sight of that. And we get most excited about plant-based alternatives that are actually focusing on nutrition, they're focusing on health, they're focusing on attributes that the consumer actually went to them in the first place for, unlike a lot of the processed products out there that are seeing some of that sacrifice.
There's an evolution. I'm a bit of a snack bar freak. I love these convenience foods, and I know I love RX bars, but this right here seems to be an evolution of this, which has been out on the market for a couple of years now, I believe owned by Kellogg right now, RX Bar.
That's right.
What are some of the taste profiles that a lot of these new companies are focusing on the next year? What's that next big trend?
Yeah, this is an exciting one for me to talk about just because I had the chance to bring in RX Bar to Whole Foods years ago. And when I first met that team, I thought to myself, I'm not going to bring in another protein bar ever. It's like such a saturated market and category, but they were doing something really different. They had a really unique ingredient deck profile. Their brand was excellent. And Midday Squares was sort of that same aha moment. I tasted the product, I saw the brand, I saw what they were doing, and thought this is going to be the next big thing in protein bars. And when it comes to flavor profile, I think what's interesting is our RX Bar really focused on egg whites and using something that was novel, but they have sort of a chewy texture and maybe something that not every customer is going to go for. I've heard a lot of people need to drink a lot of water to get them down, whereas Midday Squares is a really unique self-manufactured product. It's two different textures. It sort of is gets your chocolate bar fix, gets your protein bar fix. It's a really exceptional product that we love.
And now something that's unique about New Fair Partners is you are a primarily female-led team. We don't see that too much in the VC space. When you view the space overall, some stats to throw out there, 25.5% of female-founded companies get VC funding. You also see that even less of percentage of VC firms are led by women. What sort of responsibility do you feel to support women in VC as well as invest in these female-founded companies?
Yeah, we're really proud to have been able to raise our fund this year. It was a tough fundraising environment, and obviously with those stats, it was sort of working against us. But I think my prediction and my hope is that this is just the beginning. I'm really hopeful that we're going to see more female-led funds, more female executives, more females on boards. I very often am the only female in a boardroom, and while that's really disappointing, what we're seeing, and actually what we really have based our fund on in being operators, is that companies are recognizing the value in having strategic capital and having operators on their boards, on their cap tables. And so the more that happens, I think the more diversity we're going to see, both across gender, but race, age, and background of experience.
What do the valuations look like now after a tough year in markets for some of these upstart brands? And then what is the appetite for a Kellogg or a PepsiCo to go out and buy some of these companies next year?
Yeah, valuations are taking a hit, of course, as is everything. We focus on seed and Series A investments. They're a bit earlier stage, haven't seen quite as much of that hammering, but I think they're still experiencing it. And the market is just not there. There's a lot of apprehension around putting capital in, so everything's slowed down. That's probably the case for a period of time for strategics, but we're really optimistic. We think that the big players, they're threatened. When I read about people trading to private label or store brand products, that means they're trading from Kraft Heinz to store brand. It doesn't mean they're trading from Midday Squares or a lot of these premium consumer brands that have really created a differentiated experience.
How has it also changed in terms of the valuation that you were just running through and discussing? How has it also changed the capital ask that some of these companies are coming to you with and pitching for?
Yeah, I think a lot of brands are resetting a little bit. They're really taking stock in their runway, how much money they need to raise. We're seeing a lot of extension of rounds or some down rounds, and founders, I think, being a little humbled by what they're experiencing for the first time. It's been such a boom market that they're just realizing, all right, let's look at the health of this business, let's look at long term, and let's raise what we need, even if it's at some harder terms for them.
All right, go ahead, Brooke.
I just wanted to ask one more. One of your senior advisors is Bobby Flay. You created, from what I understand, Made by Nacho with him, a pet food brand. Am I right? Do you expect to see more pet foods? I know we're hearing a lot about how there was a boom in adoption during COVID, back down a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're still very bullish on pet, of course. We made a really conscious choice and effort to focus on cat and cat only. So I was lucky to co-found the brand Made by Nacho with Bobby Flay in 2021. We've had a really strong and very high growth start. But what we recognize is that for every dollar invested in pet, 95 cents went to dog. So you don't want to make this comparison, but it's similar to some of the earlier stats we mentioned today, which is sort of funny. But cat is really this underinvested, under-focused market, and we just recognize there needed to be sort of that next generation modern cat brand. So we're really excited about premium cat in particular, but also think there's plenty of room for growth in pet. It's just an explosive category.
Fascinating stuff you are working on. Look forward to staying in touch. Elly, Truesdell, New Fair Partners founder and managing partner, along with our very own Brooke DePalma. Good to see you both this morning.